Hello and welcome to a new episode of the All Sports Podcast, the podcast that attempts to keep you updated and with all the news in the sports world over the past week. Today is Friday, June 6th, 2021. And let's start right away with probably the biggest news of the morning, North American-wise, and it's Julio Jones is confirmed getting traded to the Tennessee Titans. It's not set in stone what the trade is for yet at the time of this recording, but it seems like it's just going to be picks and cap, just taking on that cap hit. And instantly, that makes the Titans roster absolutely pop when you just see it written down. I mean, Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, that offense. I mean, those players just pop the second you see them. And this instantly makes this puts the Titans into the conversation of, do they have now the best running back and best wide receiver in football with Derrick Henry and Julio Jones? While I do agree, I think that Julio Jones is probably, I'd say, the best wide receiver in football right now. I'd still probably lean a little bit more towards Christian McCaffrey being the best running back in football, just based on his flexibility in that offense, being able to both catch and run the ball. I mean, that's not to take anything away from Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs we've seen in this league ever. It's absolutely impossible to stop him. He's one of the few cases left in the NFL where a running back has the most impact on the team winning. I'd say it's him, it's Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, and probably the combo of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in Cleveland are the only real running back duos that really have the biggest effect on their teams winning. Now we're going to go over to the hockey world. We're going to talk about some news that broke Friday night at like 7:30. It was announced that Evgeni Malkin will be missing the start of next season due to him having to have knee surgery, which explains some things with his playoff performance. Obviously, people online were talking about why is Gino not performing to his normal standard. This kind of clarifies some things. Hopefully, he gets back to the level that he can perform at, that he showed he can perform at before. Our next big news story in hockey is with earlier this week, Taya Curry became the first female player ever drafted in the OHL, and that's obviously great news, showing a lot of progress through hockey, and hopefully Taya Curry has a great career with the Sarnia Stings and possibly could become the second female player in the NHL. Now, the last news before we get into the big F1 piece is just a reminder that tonight is going to be the kind of big showdown that we've been waiting for between Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul. The social media the social media exhibition boxing match between the two of them that has been hyped up all kind of couple months long since they announced it, whether with stupid things like that grabbing hat video or with their press conferences. Either way, that's happening tonight at midnight, and I'm sure it'll make tons and tons and tons of money. Next on the show, we're actually going to bring on two special guests. Ayrton Antenucci, you might recognize from last episode, talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and James Rawn. The two of them are gonna help me talk about this kind of crazy Baku Formula One weekend and how exciting that was. So we'll get to that. Hello and welcome back to the All Sports Podcast. Now we're joined by two special guests, Ayrton Antenucci and James Rawn, to talk about this weekend's Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Gonna start by.
What's up, y'all? Hello.
So obviously, first let's start with qualifying. Probably talk about turn 15 first with Le Crash de la Stroll. Or was Stroll first crash, or was
Stroll, or I think it was actually, I actually can't remember. It was either Stroll or Giovinazzi, but those were the two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Either way, both of them crashing in turn 15. I found it interesting. You know, they're gonna bring some F1 video game history here. You know, neither of them just took too much curb, which, you know, is what I think of. You know, that's what you think of instantly when you think crash in turn 15, grab too much curve, or too much curb. You know, turn in too early and wheel hop. No, they both just locked their fronts into turn 15.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, this weekend I found a lot of drivers overall were locking up a lot. I'm not sure if it was problems with overheating the brakes or just pushing too hard for each corner, but a lot of drivers were locking up, I found, throughout the weekend.
Yeah, word was that the track was just really cold and it wasn't evolving a lot as much as they expected it to, which was part of the reason why I think Pirelli chose to go with the softer compounds this year. But it didn't seem to do the trick, and as we'll learn later, it actually was kind of dangerous. We'll get to that.
Just slightly dangerous. Okay. After that, we had, you know, just a quick shout out to George Russell once again getting in Q2. But although, you know, assisted by 2 DNFs.
Yeah. Mr. Saturday. Hey, credit where credit's due. He's Mr. Saturday, as they like to call him. So that's when he puts in his best performances for sure.
We'll skip straight to Q3 and we'll talk about Shaw getting pole off of the toe from Lewis. In particular, just the fact that Shaw was talking about after qualifying that he thought that was actually a rather awful lap. Or first 2 sectors of that lap. And obviously we were talking earlier or later in the race, it became a conversation about the size of the Mercedes wing and how much of a tow it was actually giving the other cars, that Mercedes wing. How much do you think, or do you guys think that if there was someone else in front, not Lewis, Shaw would have still been able to grab pole?
That's an interesting question. I think, with the Mercedes, I did hear about that, how they were saying, the Mercedes are giving a better tow than the Red Bull because of that rear wing, but I still think he would have grabbed it. I mean, he was a full 2.5 tenths up on everyone else, so to me that says I don't think it would have mattered if it was Lewis or a Red Bull or whoever it was in front of him. I think it was really lucky. If that was just purely accidental, which is what it looked like. But if Ferrari did do that on purpose, then that's what got them the pole position at the end of the day. So.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think that just shows how this track. It's pretty much you don't have to have the best first and second sector if you can just go flying down that straight. So.
Then obviously, session gets called early with Yuki losing it and going into the barrier, and then obviously Carlos Sainz following seconds later with trying to get out of the way and end up spinning the car.
That did not look too good at first. That looked like Carlos Sainz just did his teammate a big favor there.
The 2007 Renault vibes were strong with that one right there. Singapore, you know. Oops.
Yeah, that did not look too good at first. You can see the look on the mechanic's face in the Ferrari garage. They started cheering and they see Yuki crash. And then they see Carlos Sainz come in the frame with a broken front wing, and suddenly they've got a controversy on their hands. But no, Sainz just lost focus, seeing Yuki go not braking into turn 3, or is that turn 3? Yeah. And just like into the barrier. It was a pretty poor mistake by him, but
side note, Carlos absolutely flying into 3. I feel like even if Yuki didn't crash at the speed he was coming in, I think he was gonna at least run wide through 3.
You think maybe he's just using that as an excuse?
Maybe. Because, yeah, he was coming in real hot.
It was like not to break, or he was trying to do a drift around the corner because he started sliding early.
That's a good point. Yeah, not a great weekend for Carlos all around. I think he'll leave frustrated, but we'll get into that a little later. Yeah,
now we can... before we go to the actual race, do you think Max would have got pole time if it wasn't for... Because obviously he was up on Scholl's first and second sector times, but also Scholl was up on his own first sector time. Do you think Max would have gotten it, or do you think Scholl would have still gotten it?
Scholl was set in purple when the track, or when the red flags came out. Verstappen obviously was just starting his lap. Like, it's pretty impossible to say. I don't think it's the same situation in Monaco last race where we were thinking, would Max have gotten pole or not? It's like, I don't know, because Leclerc was up on his time and Max was up on his time, and so was Lewis, although I don't think Lewis would have gotten it. But yeah, I think it's all hypothetical. I don't think Max would have gotten it. If that's my hot take, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely would have been close, especially because they were both set in purples. I'm not sure the sector times off the top of my head here, but I think it could have been either or. It all depends on that straight there, because it's pretty much the full length of the circuit on the way back. So
I'm trying to think. I think Scholl had an AlphaTauri giving him a tow, and I don't know who was in front of Max, but obviously he was behind Carlos, but not that close. Quick side note. Just saw this morning that we're already 6. Like, this is race 6. I feel like this season is like, it started off feeling like it was taking forever with the 2-week gaps, compared to last season where we were just flying through. But the fact that we're already 6 races into this season kind of blew my mind. We were pretty much a quarter through.
Sneak up on us, because we're a quarter through the season now, which is kind of weird. And it's funny seeing everybody like freak out all the championships over, blah blah blah. It's like, man, there's still 3 quarters left, and if you were around 2017 or 2018, Hamilton doesn't really picture those to the last quarter, so just chill for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay,
now moving into actual race. I was surprised how long that Scholl managed to hold off. I thought in my mind by the end of lap 1, Scholl would probably be down in 4th, but he was actually holding on for those first couple laps, or those first 2 laps before he just got obliterated by or not obliterated, but till the boys with the real engines pulled through.
So go ahead, James.
Thank you. I was going to say, I think Scholl actually had some decent pace this weekend, surprisingly, compared to his teammate, Carlos Sainz. But I think just the car still is not where Ferrari wants it. So, I mean, he was able to drive well, especially at the start of the race here. But I think after a few laps, cars start losing weight on the fuel, the tires start to degrade, and that's when Max and Hamilton start picking up on him.
Yeah, there was some talk about in practice they were both Carlos and Charles were complaining about tire wear. It's been a problem for Ferrari for not just this season, but for at least a few years now. So they were having some issues. So in the race, especially as the stint went on, and I think Leclerc's tires were looking a lot worse than those around him, and then plus the fact that the engine isn't where they want it to be. Made overtaking difficult and made staying where he was difficult. I don't think he actually got overtaken on track by any of the midfield cars, but they got him in the pits, if I remember correctly. So
Gasly got him in the pits.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Even when Gasly also giving out the Red Bull's little hand in the pits as well. Wow.
Yeah, he did do that.
Blocking Lewis.
Man, he gets paid.
Hey man, it worked for him in the end. He finished second, so
Yeah.
it's a do it again in a heartbeat.
He finished third, not second.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sebastian. We'll get to that a little bit later, but so were either of you guys surprised by or at least I was a little surprised at how difficult it was for a lot of the drivers to actually make overtakes or how easy it was for the lead car to pull away, even with the giant straight pulling them in. Because obviously it's difficult to overtake in sectors 1 and 2, and it's a bunch of 90-degree turns, and you'll overheat your car if you follow too closely. But I was surprised. Typically, or in years past, we've had cars farther back, like within 6-7 tenths, be able to still make the move past the lead car by the end of the straight. And I did, at least personally, I don't think there was as much of that this season, or this weekend. If that's a surprise either you guys as well, or am I just going crazy?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was kind of weird, wasn't it? Like seeing Verstappen and Lewis in particular, just especially in the first stint, just sort of thereabouts with each other, like around a second and a half. Sometimes, if one of them got DRS, they would close up a little bit, but yeah, it was kind of weird considering how easy, or at least on paper, how easy it is to overtake here, especially those DRS zones. Plus the fact that almost every corner is a slow one, so it's not like dirty air will affect your grip through those too much. I guess it was either, it might have been car dependent. Like we know the Mercedes is developed to be in front and it doesn't like being in dirty air, so that might have had something to do with his tire wear or just temperature issues, like you said. Like that's the only thing that I can think of in terms of like why wasn't Lewis able to get back past Max like the next lap, something like that. Yeah, it was a theme throughout almost the entire race until the last sprint at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I have a feeling that it's the cars now with both Red Bull and Mercedes, because both Red Bull drivers were able to put in great in-laps for their pits to stay ahead of Hamilton when he pitted. So I'm assuming that the Honda power unit is just the electrical components of it are really just giving it the horsepower down the straight there. Because Perez, after the first pit stops, was able to hold off Hamilton for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't really give it much thought. But the more I think about it, it's definitely surprising with how little overtakes there was on the main straight. I think I can only think of a handful off the top of my head right now.
Also, fun question: is the first DRS zone, like the run down to 3? Does anyone else think that is like the most pointless DRS zone? Because I can't think of a single overtake that happens throughout the whole time we've been going to Baku down to the run to 3, outside of maybe on the last lap.
Or are you talking about the DRS zone that, into 3? So
yeah,
that, like
the first DRS zone of the lap.
Yeah, that's a mystery to me, honestly, because nobody ever overtakes. They even if there was a few times where the cars would be like 6/10 behind, going into that corner, which is really close, and they still don't make it past. So I don't know. I really don't know what's up with that DRS.
So I have a feeling it's more the FIA just trying to have 2 DRS zones per track, and there's not really many other spots in Baku where you could, in my opinion. And I also wanted to say turn 3 itself is probably not the best for overtaking.
Yeah, it's definitely We'll say you gotta have big balls to attempt to move down to 3.
Yeah,
you do.
Inside curb's not kind with that 90-degree wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's the outside wall, as Yuki found out.
I'm trying to think about people trying to make moves into 3, and the only thing that can come to my mind was in F2 2 seasons ago, the famous clip of Raghunathan trying to go for an overtake, locking up, and then doing like a James Bond maneuver in the runoff area.
Yeah, I can recall a few. Like, I mean, this race at the end, we saw like Leclerc and Gasly going side by side.
Oh yeah.
There, and we saw, I think it was 2017. Kimi was still in Ferrari, and he had contact with Force India there, and there was, I think, in the same year when it might have been 2018 when Max and Daniel were fighting the whole race. They went side by side there a few times, but. Yeah, it usually doesn't end cleanly.
Was that where Max and Daniel had their crash? I couldn't remember if that was into 3.
Max and Daniel had it into turn 1.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
The two moments you brought up, I think it was actually turn 2, not turn 3. I'm trying to think. So I think the Kimi incident was at the start of the race.
It was at the start of the race. I know for sure that one was in turn 3.
Okay,
I know seven Max went side by side in pretty much every corner of that race. So, yeah. So I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah, turn 3 is just a 90-degree turn, I guess, for Baku.
Yeah. It just seems like one of the most pointless DRS zones, at least to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's also the FIA, like James was talking about. I'm sure the FIA, not just that they want 2 DRS zones for each track, but I'm sure they like seeing the fastest lap get broken, like the track record lap get broken almost every year. And you know, if they got rid of that DRS zone, it would obviously slow down the quali laps.
Mm-hmm. What got to me was like they weren't gaining that much in the DRS zone. Like that didn't make sense to me. Like the DRS didn't do much for them, which was weird. But I guess we'll never know.
Okay, now let's move on to one of probably the two most notable incidents. The first one with Lance and his rear right popping on him on the straight, or was it rear left?
Yep.
Because I thought it was his rear left, but I thought then
left, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thought Paul di Resta and Crofty called it his right. Either way, pop on the back straight. Real question is, do you guys think, like, obviously we've got this, and then last year we had Silverstone. Do you think that maybe Pirelli should be like making it, or maybe not making harder tire compounds, but giving a more moderate estimate of the life of the tires for the teams? Or do you think, you know, it's part of the sport, push into the absolute edge?
I mean, to me, it's a bit of both. Like, clearly there was some kind of breakdown because they said they were rated for, I think, 40 laps. And Stroll's failed in lap 30, Max, or I think Stroll 32, Max 30 on their respectively. So I don't know. Clearly there was something wrong. Obviously, it's hard for them to rate them, I imagine, accurately, right? Like you're saying it's 40 laps. There's some leeway there, obviously, because they're not putting the cars on the track yet. But I think Pirelli did kind of screw that one up. But at the same time, it is part of the sport. I mean, it's scary because it's dangerous that there was no warning, right? So that's something that they definitely should look at.
Yeah, you definitely don't want a driver crashing at nearly 200 miles per hour because of a tire failure on a front straight where the barriers aren't designed for much of an impact except for just to deflect it down the straight. Though it's also, I want to say it's probably because due to COVID, the regulation changes were pushed back a year. So these tires were only designed to last or to be used until last year.
But even last year, we had Silverstone where both Valtteri and Max had their tires go last few laps.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know. Like, I want to say the excuse that's always given is what I've always heard is that we're supposed to be on the 18-inch rims and different tires, but tire failures have definitely become more common in the past few years here of F1, if I can imagine. It's definitely odd.
I think, obviously, I do understand the point of view of it's part of the sport, and it does, when a tire pops saying that everyone's safe, it does add a lot of entertainment. Like, Max's tire going at the end of the race added a whole new level of entertainment, but it's kind of like the battle between, do you want something that's more entertaining or do you want something that's more just sporting? Because when you start just pushing things that are just all about entertainment, it's kind of the same debate that happens with NASCAR throwing a bunch of yellow flags near the end of races just to bunch up the field, even if it wasn't warranted, because they know it'll be entertaining. At what point, like, say Max pops his tire, we restart, Lewis just wins the race, and then say at the end of the year, Lewis wins the championship by 2 points. I don't think that would actually happen, but like, say that happened. At what point if you're Max, would you feel like, well, Pirelli fucked me on this one? Like, I lost the championship because they were trying to push entertainment over just good, like, straight up racing.
Yeah, obviously, I think that was a big factor in why they chose the softer compounds. They wanted to force maybe a 2-stop or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at this point, like, there's a certain point where it's just dangerous. I think that's the bigger issue is, like, you can't have no warning, so yeah, I think that's the bigger issue, but there is a limit, like you said. Like, I think it's been something that F1 has struggled with a lot over the years. They've been playing with the idea, do we make the cars faster, or do we make them easier to be alongside each other, drive behind each other, things like that. So that's hopefully what the regs will fix. But yeah, it's an interesting debate for sure.
Yeah, like, it's the same reason why they took out refueling during the race was for safety. Refueling added a whole bunch of entertainment and strategy to it, and it was popular, I think, among fans, but it was dangerous. Any mistake could happen, you have a fire or anything else, right? So I can see the point, and it is, you do want to make the sport entertaining for fans. That's how you generate money and revenue, and you can hold these events, but you do also have to take a look at the driver's safety, because they do step into these cars, and the safety for these things aren't leagues better than what they were 20 years ago, but there's still room for improvement, and I think they should. I don't know, it's a tough decision, but definitely I would say lean towards more safety than unexpected tire failures during the straightaways.
What do you guys think about the idea of just giving the teams more sets of tires to work through for the weekend, like more sets of softs and more sets of mediums? But like you still put a cap on how many sets you can use in qualifying. Still say you have to use whatever you had on in Q2 is what you're starting on. But in the race, you give the teams more sets of like softs. Say if a team they get 3 or 4 sets of softs for one weekend, depending on what they choose, or not one weekend. Yeah, well, for qualifying and the race. What if you gave them 5? Would they then think it's maybe more valuable to switch on to softer tires more frequently, and maybe, because then you're gonna, or in my mind, that would you'd have more teams pitting more often for the tire performance increase, and then you probably not deal with this this problem as much.
Yeah, I mean, giving them, I'm all for that, and even if if Pirelli came out and said that we're just going to make every compound softer than it is now, right? It's like, okay, obviously that you want to force more stops and make strategy more interesting, but like generally speaking, I don't know. Like you want to see that, and giving them more sets. I don't know if that would, like, if they still have the hards, they just use the hards, you know? That's what I think they would do. But, again, like, I think the root of the issue is nobody would have an issue with softer sets if they were safe, right? So
yeah, if they actually gave the warning.
Yeah.
And this year is also a little bit different, too, because due to COVID, the teams actually don't choose how many of softs, hards, mediums they take this season. Every team has the same amount, which is determined by Pirelli. For cost reasons, but I don't think actually giving them more tires in general would help, because even if they did have a set of, like, some teams had a set of spare softs for the race, you still, like, yeah, you can pit twice, and most of the time that actually, by data, that shows that's the faster strategy is normally a 2-stop compared to a 1-stop, but you still have to take into account overtaking, which is not easy to do on a track. So, yeah, I don't think adding more tires would be the solution here. It would help, but
okay.
Yeah, I don't think.
So we'll move on ahead to, obviously, you know, Max had his crash and that brought out the red flag. Just quickly, either of you guys think that it should have just ended under safety car? Or do you think it was the right decision to get everyone on the standing start again?
I personally think it was actually a smart idea to red flag the race due to the possible, like, the suspected tire failures that it was. And I forget what his position, but there's someone on the Red Bull pit wall who rated into the FIA saying, red flag the race so we can change our tires. Like, this is a safety thing.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably a good reason why they red flagged the race, besides also Max's car being right at the pit wall pretty much, so it's kind of hard to remove it. Drive through the pit lane, but
yeah, even from an entertainment perspective, right? Like, I think everyone was like, everyone that wasn't a Lewis Hamilton fan, I guess, or that wasn't a Max Verstappen fan, rather, was saying just restart the race, because a standing start with 2-lap sprint would be great to watch. Obviously, didn't end well for Hamilton, but, like, I think I don't know if the FIA or Liberty were thinking at that point about, we'll just make the race more exciting. But if they were, that worked. So, yeah, I think it was the right decision, even from, like James mentioned, even from a safety perspective. I think it made sense to get everyone on new tires.
Are you guys a fan of the new thing that Sky's doing, where you can hear kind of the chats with Michael Massey between the teams and stuff?
Yeah, I like it, because it's a side of F1 you hear of, but you don't really see. Like, you hear, the teams can talk to the FIA about an incident during the race, say, hey, can you look at this, or so-and-so should be at fault for this incident. But I like it. It was kind of a thing out of the blue. I don't think they really mentioned it much going into the season, but it's just something that is good to hear, because it's basically just, gives you a little bit more insight to the teams and how F1 works.
Yeah, I like it. It's good. Not much more to say about it. It's more information during the race. I'm sure Netflix will like it too.
Oh, I'm sure Netflix will love it. I wonder if Michael Massey was like on board right away with that idea, or if maybe he was had me convinced into it by Sky, because I would think if I was Michael Massey, that's the last thing I would want. I wouldn't want people hearing the chats that I have
There's
with
no
the
way
teams.
that he was for that.
Yeah.
There's no way. Yeah, no. There's no way that he wanted to do that. I'm sure Liberty talked him into it because obviously more info to the fans and it makes the race a little more spicy. So, yeah, I'm sure he didn't love that.
I think even as a team principal, I wouldn't really love that either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure team principals.
I mean, it still falls under the same guidelines and such as as just the normal team radios. Like they're not. I mean, they're live to an extent, but
anyways, to the press box. So yeah, it's that's a whole other thing. I don't think. I think it definitely bothered Massey more than Christian Horner, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much difference between that and the team's radio. Like they're still if they're swearing, it gets censored. So nothing changed.
Yeah. Now we'll move on to the restart, and obviously turn one. Well, lining up on the grid, I think everyone saw Hamilton's brakes were absolutely aflame. And then obviously going into one, locks them both up. We find out later that the team had left what they call brake magic on, which I was confused. Maybe you guys can give a little insight into this. Why was Paul DiResta so afraid to say what brake magic was? Maybe I missed something.
I think he's still been under contract with Mercedes, no?
Yeah, but it seems like such a non-issue.
I don't know. My guess is he's just under contract for Mercedes. He doesn't want to give any technical information away. Like, he doesn't want to risk it, type of thing.
Then,
yeah, it's weird. I don't know if he's still. I don't know if that's the reason or if it's just like he's a poor commentator. It feels like that's another discussion to be had because. Yeah, like all of his takes during the entire weekend were just like complete garbage, and yeah, he added almost nothing to the commentary, so it was pretty difficult to listen to him, but that's just my opinion.
It's the third band, so
yeah. So we'll move on. Obviously, Hamilton cooks it. Perez ends up holding his position. Perez and so does Seb, and then there's the battle between Gasly, Leclerc, and Lando for P3.
Man. Yeah. I mean that's what you want to see, isn't it? It was probably the best racing we saw all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great to see. I mean, Pierre fully deserved that. He defended great. Norris, I think, saved his butt a little at the end there because he put Leclerc out of position. But yeah, it was great driving from all three of them there, and obviously Perez winning is a great story, and Seb back on the podium in P2 is just like an incredible drive.
Well, that was so much fun.
Yeah, and also it's Aston Martin's first podium as a constructor too, so it's good to see them.
Yeah, it was great to see for sure. And I mean, it was a little hard. The Ferrari fan hurting me watching Seb go, past Leclerc and then go on to get a podium while Leclerc was denied was a little difficult to swallow, but it's still good. I mean, it's great to see it for him after such a terrible season last year. To see him on the podium again was always great to see.
Yeah, and I personally loved seeing after he got out of the car, you saw Alonso, you saw Perez, you saw Shaw walking over to him, congratulating him. You saw him getting congratulated by some of the Red Bull crew. It really does remind you just how long Seb's been in the sport. That
Yeah, he knows everyone, and everyone knows him.
Yeah.
At this point. Yeah.
He's well liked.
Yeah, and just the respect that all the other drivers had, and to go over and congratulate him, and it was really cool to see.
It was, yeah.
We also had, obviously, Seb won driver of the day, and they did the onboard interview with him. I know, Ayrton, you didn't really hear it, but I know, James, you did. Any thoughts on the kind of onboard interview that they did?
It's not a bad idea. Like, I get their point. You know, you talk to the driver after the race, kind of like what they do with some other sports where you talk to an athlete right after, in between a period or quarter type of thing. But I think the drivers on their cooldown lap are focused on other things. If they're let alone if they get on the podium, like they're you got to put the car in certain settings and all that. You talk to the engineer, and then I mean, Seb really didn't even know what to say. I don't know if he was expecting it either. So
I don't think he was. I think it worked well, speaking to Seb as he grabbed P2. But imagine this goes on in the future. Imagine calling up someone who's just like finished 18th, imagine they had called up Valtteri Bottas this weekend and asked him, "So how was the race, Valtteri?"
Or Lewis.
Or Lewis.
I think the better one would be like Gasly Brazil 2018 when he won.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just screaming through the mic trying to have an interview.
Yeah. No, it'd be great to. I think it's a good idea, like, to get their before they have time to settle down, just get their raw reaction to their race. I think it's great. I think it's really cool. But yeah, I guess they have to be careful with their calling, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I know.
I mean, it'd be pretty hilarious if they were calling them mid-race and be like, "So how's your race going so far, buddy?" And walk up and spin and crash into somebody and answer questions.
Do you guys think we'll ever see that kind of go into when safety cars come out, similar to how they do it in NASCAR? Because that's what they do typically when safety cars are just come out, or when cars are about to start up. You'll have the onboard interview going on.
I think the drivers would complain. It's intrusive. I think they're trying to focus on their race, figure shit out, and they probably don't want someone in their ear asking about their race. They don't even want to do it after the race, never mind while driving. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'd go that far, but that would definitely be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think that's where everyone probably got this idea, but I don't think many people would, like drivers and teams would like it, because, safety car, you got we got to get the pit right away, and the safety car is not out forever, so I don't think they would, and if they did, it won't be too well received among drivers.
I know we've only got you guys for a little limited time here, so I'm going to quickly, last question, just both of you touch quickly on the whole Mazepin-Schumacher situation at the last lap of the race there.
Oh man, that was terrible. I mean, when I was watching that, it was like, you see Mick, he's got the switch, obviously he's making overtake. Yeah, and he just goes for it, he goes to the right, Mazepin sees him, and he just flicks his car to the right. Well, Mick is going 330 kilometers an hour next to a concrete wall. It's like, man, if he didn't react subtly, if he wasn't so calm on the wheel there, then that would have been like an airplane crash, man. So, yeah, I don't think Mazepin will get any points for it. I don't think they're going to look at it, but it's flashbacks to his F2 days driving like that.
Yeah, I think besides like warning, there won't be a slap on the wrist for Mazepin. The team probably also will have a long talk about it probably in the race. After the race.
It kind of gave me flashbacks 2018 Force India when Ocon and Perez were having fun like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, neither of them ever got points on their super license or anything, but they definitely had some that created some real tension between the teams. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward. I think already it's pretty clear that those two maybe aren't the best of friends to start with, but
well, yeah, and the difference between them and the Force Indias from 2017, 2018 is like they're not even close. Like Mick was miles ahead of. I think he was a minute 40 seconds ahead of Mazepin at one point in the race, and then obviously he had that weird safety car thing where they had to pull him back because his tire wasn't fitted properly, and he still came out in front of him.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just yikes, man.
Yeah, it definitely would be frustrating to drive that Haas that's not going to develop at all this year. So,
yeah. I mean, I think that, obviously they should just be taking it as get some experience in a shit box, and it'll make you a better driver.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's Mercedes' philosophy with Russell, because he's been rotting in that team for 3 years now. So.
Well, at least that Williams is showing progress, though.
Yeah. They're getting closer to that 1 point, man. They're getting closer.
Slowly, surely.
I got his number right, Latifi. I'm done.
You got his number.
He's doing it. He's getting that point.
Latifi's getting it.
He's gonna get the point before George.
Cursed, so.
Yeah.
Everybody's sleeping on Latifi, all right? You got Mr. Saturday, Latifi needs to step as Mr. Sunday, so.
Mr. Sunday.
Mr. Sunday got a 10-second stop-go penalty because Mr. Sunday didn't pit.
Well, that wasn't his fault, though. That wasn't his fault at all.
That was his team. That wasn't him.
Yeah, just out. Oh, you didn't come into the pits.
Why didn't you pit, man?
Stay out.
Got kind of screwed there, eh?
That sounds so that seems like such an big not an error Formula 1 team should be making. Like that seems so beginner to be yelling out at your driver. Like
I mean, here's the real question. Nikita Mazepin got a better position. He finished higher than Lewis Hamilton, who's a 7-time world champion in this race, right? Does this confirm that Nikita will at least get 8 world championships in his career?
And by that logic, Valtteri is better than Lewis as well. Just so we're clear on that.
Actually, I think by this logic,
everybody's better than Lewis.
Stroll is better than Lewis. Well, he's finished.
No, he had 4 drivers not finished the race.
Yeah. Who else did it was Ocon and
Ocon, Stroll, George,
and Max.
George and Max. Yes. So, George confirmed not better.
Not better than Max.
Else.
Yeah, sorry, not better than anyone else. That's why he doesn't have a point.
Poor George.
Hashtag bring back Robert Kubica. Well,
Facts.
Well, thank you guys for taking time out to talk to me on the podcast today, talk about the race and the weekend. Any final words before you go?
Next up is France, so you can skip that one. Yeah, it's gonna be probably not too exciting, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I got 2 things I want to comment here. One, Kimi Räikkönen, first point of the season.
Oh yeah.
Round of applause to Kimi there, and Sergio Perez, along with the race win.
That could be. Yeah.
Along with the race win, third in the drivers with 69 points.
Oh yeah.
69 points.
Nice.
Nice. Oh, don't forget about Antonio Giovinazzi passing Valtteri Bottas on track.
Oh, that did happen.
Casually.
I was gonna bring it up earlier that just how dreadful of a weekend it was for Valtteri, but didn't feel like dunking on the guy.
Maybe on Friday you can discuss a little more.
Oh, get an in-depth lap-by-lap breakdown of Valtteri's race.
Valtteri's career crumbling before his eyes.
Oh God, yeah.
That's the whole podcast. It's just Valtteri.
It's just Valtteri. Oh.
Why is Valtteri so shit?
Make sure you include a photo of his ass on from Drive.
Oh yeah, from Drive to Survive.
Oh yeah. YouTube will like that.
Oh yeah, they'll love that one. Okay, once again, thank you guys for joining me here. Have a good one, guys.
You as well, brother.
Yeah, for having us.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the All Sports Podcast. Just a reminder, later tonight for some of the sports going on, we got Game 3 of Montreal Canadiens versus the Winnipeg Jets. Seeing if the Montreal Canadiens can go up 3-0 in that series at home with fans in the Bell Center. We also have Game 4, Colorado versus Vegas. Series split 2-1 with Vegas grabbing the win 2 nights ago with Max Pacioretty's tip-in the third. And like I brought up earlier in the episode, we have the big Floyd Mayweather versus Jake Paul fight. I'm sure no matter the outcome, we'll be talking about that on Friday's episode. Once again, just thank you for listening to the All Sports Podcast. I've been your host, Matthew Wilkinson, and thanks for listening. Peace and love.